I, a 21-year-old female, am currently in a big fight with my two sisters, a 20-year-old female and an 18-year-old female, over me accidentally finding out they were talking badly about me. For some context, I just graduated college in May. While I was at college, I stayed in the dorms and worked as a resident assistant. After I graduated, I needed to move out, and I asked my sisters for help cleaning out my dorm. I had warned them ahead of time that the place was a mess, and I didn't blame them if they didn't want to help. The reason my dorm was so bad was because a best friend of mine had suddenly passed away in a car accident over the summer, and I wasn't handling it well, especially living on my own. So while my sisters were there helping, my youngest sister, I'm going to call her Eliza, stepped into the hallway and took a hit off her vape. So not only is a minor vaping on camera, she's doing it on a dry campus. I freak out and say something along the lines of, "Are you an idiot? Put that away." Both of my sisters and my mother told me that I had overreacted, and it didn't matter because I was moving out. As I said, I was a resident assistant at the dorms, so I know that if someone is seen vaping on one of the cameras, the police are called. And some might say, no one is going to sit there and watch the cameras. But my boss would sit there in her office and watch all of the cameras, especially when someone was moving out, so it freaked me out. So not only would she be in trouble for vaping as a minor and on a dry campus, my mother would get in trouble for buying it for her, and I would be fined for breaking dorm policy. After about an hour, I thought that I acted out pretty harshly and could have worded it better. So I apologized, she accepted, and we moved on. I thought this was the end of it. Later on, I needed to call a resident assistant to come do my final checkout. My phone was dead and I asked to use Eliza's. She handed it over and I called the resident assistant. She then told me I could play on it while I wait for the resident assistant. So I did. I opened Snapchat to send one of my friends a video to tell him I finished moving out. I know they are friends on there, so that's why I decided to do it. I opened her Snapchat and it opened to a text conversation of her and my other sister. We'll call her Ellie. I didn't mean to see anything, and before I could close out of it, all I see is, all she does is use people and then treat them like crap after, and a bunch of other mean things with my name attached to it. This hit me very hard because Eliza and I are extremely close. Eliza and Ellie, not so much. I expect this kind of thing from Ellie, but Eliza and I bonded over how badly Ellie had treated the both of us for the last 6 years or so. So I was upset and I cried to my mom about it. My mom is also surprised about Eliza saying these things because of how close we are. I didn't talk to Eliza on the way home because I didn't really know what to say. I wasn't even going to say anything. I was just going to pretend like it never happened. After not talking to Eliza for a bit, she sensed something was wrong and talked to my mom. And my mother told her I saw everything. Eliza was then mad because she felt that I had invaded her privacy. So fast forward to today, it's been a month and a half of not speaking to each other. Mostly because I just wanted an apology. Eliza said she wasn't mad anymore by day 2, but the more I kept thinking about it, the angrier it made me. The 2 days they helped me move out, I bought them breakfast and lunch and thanked them over and over again for helping. I was really appreciative of their help and the lack of judgment. So this whole thing really messed with me. And for anyone being like, buying them lunch and breakfast doesn't mean anything, I would do anything for Eliza, and I thought she knew that. For her 18th birthday, I spent around $300 on her. And in addition to that, several months before her birthday, I bought her pit tickets to one of her favorite artists. And I did this because I knew my parents wouldn't get her anything, and I wanted her to have a good birthday. I also am the only reason she graduated high school. And no, I don't mean I helped her study. I mean I did all of her assignments for her. She was in online school, and I did every single assignment for her to make sure she graduated. But I do admit that I probably have treated Ellie badly before. It's all she's done to me for the last 6 years. Made fun of me, my appearance, my personality, everything. She told me and Eliza that we couldn't come to the hospital and see her baby after she was born because she didn't know if she would want to deal with us and didn't think we would act our age. That had hurt both Eliza and my feelings, and we shared this with Ellie. Anyways, those concert tickets I bought for her, the concert is next Saturday, and my mother has kept asking me if I'm going to take Eliza to it, and my answer every time has been, I don't know, I just want an apology. And so come Saturday night, Eliza texted me and said, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, but are you done being mad at me yet? This ended in another fight because I responded that all I wanted was an apology because I would never talk that way about her, to which she said, all I wanted was an apology for you invading my privacy. And I told her that it wasn't my fault she left the conversation open and that she was only mad because she had gotten caught. She didn't text me back after this, and instead I received a message from my other sister Ellie. To sum it all up, she basically said the same thing. All I do is use people and then treat them badly. But in much harsher words, and with reasoning that made no sense, or just had more to the story than what she was leading with. Which, yes, altogether it did make me sound horrid, but none of it was true. The whole text was awful and about the length of this post. She also mentioned how my text to Eliza was crazy, and that just because I saw my name didn't mean I had to read it. I left her on read because in the moment I was too upset to respond and knew I would say some very harsh things. So I never answered and I moved on, and then I received a text from Eliza today. Basically saying that the text I sent her was insane, and I did invade her privacy, and that I needed to grow up and how it was pathetic that a 21-year-old couldn't take responsibility. At this point, I'm just over it. I don't respond to either one of them, and I call my mom and tell her I'm done with it all, and I don't want to see either one of them. She thinks I should sit down with both of them, and we should talk it all out. I don't want to, and I don't think it will be beneficial. To add, my mom has been going back and forth talking to each of us about it. She's doing a bad job at playing mediator because she'll sit there and talk badly about me with them, and it makes the whole thing worse. She tries to do it with me too, but I just tell her all I want is an apology. She is instigating it all, and the only thing it's doing is making things worse. I'm sure I left some stuff out, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I just need some advice on how to handle all of this. I don't know what to do anymore. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Your whole family dynamic is unhealthy. Parents are neglectful and interfering, instigating, feeling like you need to do your sister's schoolwork for a year so she would graduate. Bizarre. Educational neglect from your parents, unhelpful to your sister long term. Your whole family is messed up. Sorry, I'm sure that's hard to hear. You need to focus on yourself, not your family. Try to access mental health resources. Deal with your depression. Step back from your family. Learn healthy boundaries and how to enforce them. Learn to gray rock. Lower your contact with your mom. If you live at your parents' house, plan to get out as soon as possible. Build your community away from your family. Focus on old friends and making new ones. Helpful phrases and actions. I'm not discussing this anymore. If you continue, I will leave the conversation. If they continue, then you hang up or leave. That doesn't work for me. You don't have to provide an explanation. Practice saying no to them. Take longer to respond. If you would usually answer a text within 5 minutes, first wait 15 minutes, then 1 or 2 weeks later, 30 minutes, then an hour, then a morning or afternoon, etc. Same with phone calls. You don't have to answer. Call back when it's convenient for you. Send a text first asking why they called. If it can't be dealt with by text, say, okay, I'll call you at X o'clock. Comment 2. It seems we have 2 sisters not wanting to take accountability for the hurt they caused each other. One sister just wanting to insert herself in the drama to fan the flames, and a mother that is not very good at mothering her daughters. Is this fight worth it? Take Ellie out of the equation. I suspect she is a lost cause for many reasons. I would say just go low contact and move on with your life with that girl. But with Eliza, is the pride of being right worth damaging or losing your relationship to this level? Really? Is it worth that much to you? Have you never said or done anything that you didn't mean when you were frustrated in the moment? Like how you snapped at her for using the vape in the hallway. Did you apologize right then and there for being over the top? So she vented, and you read it, and you confronted her, and she got defensive, and now you are both at a stalemate, stuck in your pride. No one wins here, except your middle sister, for as long as she keeps the wedge between you two. Talk through this calmly and in person, alone. Now for the update. 3 days after my last post, Eliza texted me again asking to meet up before the concert. I was hesitant, but I agreed, thinking maybe we could finally talk things out. We chose to meet at the coffee shop near the concert venue since it was a familiar place for us. Eliza showed up first and looked nervous, fiddling with her phone while she was waiting. I arrived a few minutes later, and as soon as I sat down, the tension was obvious. Eliza started talking about the concert, trying to keep things light, but I wasn't having it. I brought up the comments she and Ellie made, wanting to address the main issue. Eliza apologized again, but it felt forced. She kept looking away instead of making eye contact. I told her that simply saying sorry wasn't enough, and she needed to understand why it hurt. Eliza insisted she didn't mean what she said, and that it was just a moment of weakness. Just then, Ellie walked in, and I could see her attitude instantly changed the mood. Ellie sat down, and the three of us started to discuss everything awkwardly. The conversation quickly got worse as Ellie jumped in, blaming me for the rift. I shot back, saying Ellie had no right to criticize my feelings after what they said. Ellie then revealed that she felt overshadowed by the attention Eliza got for her concert. I was surprised. I had no idea that was even part of the issue. The coffee shop staff looked at us, and I felt embarrassed for causing a scene. Eliza tried to defend me, saying that I had my own things going on too. Ellie replied that I was the one making everything about myself, which was a low blow. We ended up arguing loudly, with patrons staring, and I just wanted to leave. I got up to walk out, but Eliza grabbed my arm, pleading for us to not give up. I pulled away, feeling overwhelmed, and left the coffee shop. The concert was just 2 days away, and I was unsure if I even wanted to go. Eliza texted me later that day, saying she hoped I'd still come to the concert. I didn't respond, needing space to think about everything that had happened. The next day, I received a call from Eliza, but I let it go to voicemail. I found out through a group chat that Eliza and Ellie were planning to go together anyway. On the day of the concert, I had a friend invite me to a nearby restaurant instead. I thought it would be better to spend my evening somewhere else, away from the drama. While at the restaurant, I noticed Eliza and Ellie posting stories from the concert. They looked happy in the photos, and I felt a little sting seeing them together. My mom called me later that night, asking if I was okay after seeing their posts. I told her I was fine, but I didn't mention where I was or what I was doing. A week passed, and I hadn't heard from them, which felt oddly peaceful. Out of nowhere, I got a message from Ellie saying she wanted to talk. I agreed to meet her at a local diner, thinking maybe we could talk things out. Ellie showed up looking apologetic and immediately brought up the comments again. She admitted she regretted how she handled everything and wanted to start fresh. I said I needed time to think about it, but I was willing to hear her out. Am I the idiot for exposing my wife's affair at a family dinner and filing for divorce? My wife, Ella, who is 32 years old, and I, who am 35 years old, have been together for 7 years and married for 5. 2 years ago, she admitted to cheating on me with a coworker. I had always believed that cheating was a red line for me, and I was initially determined to divorce her. However, she did the work to regain my trust, or so I believed at the time. I also factored in the following, which allowed me to eventually move past it and forgive her. 1. She confessed to me voluntarily. She wasn't found out and forced to tell me. 2. It was one time at a housewarming party with the coworker. I remember that night. She didn't return home until 4 a.m., and I sent her several texts checking in to see if she was okay and if she needed me to pick her up. She normally doesn't like to drink, but occasionally succumbs to peer pressure, so I was worried she might have been too drunk to drive. 3. She quit her job after confessing to me. This was her own choice to prove that she was prepared to hold herself to better boundaries. I actually discouraged her at the time because I was set on divorcing her and was concerned that her lack of a job would mean I would need to pay higher alimony if she was unemployed. 4. When I was 19 years old, I also cheated on my then girlfriend, who was not Ella, via a drunken kiss. Obviously, it wasn't as bad as what Ella did, which was full-on intercourse, but part of me felt like a hypocrite for not being able to forgive Ella since my college girlfriend had forgiven me. Given the above, and the fact that Ella genuinely seemed remorseful, everything else in our relationship was great, and she was the most compatible person I had ever dated personality-wise, I decided to forgive Ella and not divorce her on the condition that she signed a post-nuptial agreement. She enthusiastically agreed. The post-nuptial agreement isn't overly harsh, in my opinion, aside from affirming that our premarital assets won't go into the settlement in the event of a divorce. It also included an infidelity clause with the penalty of the cheater forfeiting our jointly owned home, the car, and alimony in the event of a divorce. The balance would also be split 60-40 in favor of the cheated spouse rather than 50-50. We both had independent legal advice when this was drafted and signed. Fast forward to last month when I was contacted on Facebook by Alice, the wife of my wife's affair partner. She had tracked me down by going through Ella's social media. She told me that she had caught her husband, Bill, cheating on her and discovered their affair from 2 years ago after going through his electronic devices. She asked if I knew, to which I replied that I did, but I thanked her for telling me anyway. She asked what had happened between Ella and me, and I told her that we had reconciled. She said she was determined to divorce Bill because, unlike my wife, Bill had proven to be a serial cheater and never confessed to her. Now for an update. The part that has since changed my mind about forgiving Ella is the fact that she revealed that Bill and Ella had actually been having an affair for 5 months. I clarified if she meant an emotional affair, but she clarified that it was a physical affair and that they had hooked up over 10 times. In my mind, this makes the affair so much worse. It wasn't just a drunken night. It was a long period of planned and deliberate choices, and I feel like an absolute fool. This past weekend I confronted Ella, and she admitted it. I asked why she didn't tell me the full truth, and she said she didn't believe I would have forgiven her if I had known. She's been trying to convince me that it's in the past. We've made 2 years of progress since, and it doesn't matter whether it was once or 10 times. She argues that her confession showed true remorse. But my current thought is that the omission shows that even in her confession, her main concern was protecting herself rather than respecting me as a spouse by giving me the agency to make a fully informed choice, not that different from never telling me in the first place. I am now strongly considering divorce again and relying on the prenuptial agreement for a more favorable divorce settlement. She wants us to go back to couples therapy, but how would that even work now that I trust her even less than I did 2 years ago? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You reconciled based on false facts. She knew you would not be able to overlook 5 months, so she lied and told you it was one night. She enthusiastically agreed to all your terms because she knew the truth was far worse. She has since lied or omitted the truth every day for 2 years. For me, this would be the deal breaker. She has not changed if she is still willing to conceal the truth from you. There is nowhere to go except divorce court. Comment 2. Act on your intuition here, my friend. She covered up a serious multi-month affair and lied to you about it. Complete selfish deception, in my humble opinion. There's no excuse. You should get out of this while you still can, with your finances and mental health intact. A person like this isn't worth the trouble of trying to make it work. Now, for the update, I'm not sure how much more I can take. 3 days after that fight with my wife, I get a call from Alice, the wife of the guy, Bill, that Ella cheated with. Alice says she hired a private investigator to follow Bill because she thought he was still seeing someone else. She has proof that he's been meeting Ella multiple times in the last few weeks. I mean, this woman is better at finding stuff out than the freaking FBI. So I decide I need to confront Ella again. This time I have proof. Ella's at home when I walk in and I can see she's nervous. Not that I care. I lay out the evidence. She looks like she's seen a ghost. I mean, her face is pale as hell. She doesn't deny anything. She admits to meeting Bill again, but says it was just to talk about their past. I mean, seriously? If it was just to talk, why keep it a secret? She claims she's trying to move on from her mistakes. I tell her it's too late for that, and I want to take legal action regarding our post-nuptial agreement. She starts crying and begging, but I'm done with all that. The next day, I meet with a lawyer to discuss the implications of her actions. I learned that the infidelity clause in our post-nuptial agreement could lead to a better settlement for me. I'm talking more money and maybe even the house. So, I decide to gather my own evidence. I start documenting Ella's daily activities. I notice she's getting these strange calls late at night and is texting someone a lot. I call Alice and ask her to keep me updated on anything new about Bill. A few days later, Alice sends me photos of Bill and Ella meeting at a local diner. I decide to show up at the diner to confront them in person, but I need a solid plan. So I call my brother who lives nearby and ask him to join me as a witness. We arrive at the diner and see them sitting together in a booth. I walk up to them and the look on Ella's face is priceless. She's just frozen. I demand to know why she's still seeing him after everything. Bill tries to explain, but I interrupt him and tell him to stay out of it. Ella tries to defend herself, but I cut her off and make it clear I've had enough. I tell her I'm filing for divorce immediately. She begs me to reconsider, but I'm done listening. The next day I file for divorce, including all the evidence Alice gave me in my own documentation. It's like Christmas came early. I start planning a family dinner at my parents' house, inviting Ella and my siblings. I get my parents to agree to a celebration of New Beginnings theme. They have no idea what's coming. During dinner, I drop the news about the divorce and Ella's cheating. I reveal all the details of her affair to my family, watching the shock on their faces. My parents are supportive, and my siblings express their disappointment in Ella. I walk away, leaving her standing there alone. A week later, I get another call from Alice. She's filed for divorce from Bill after learning about his ongoing affair with Ella. I feel a bit bad for her, but honestly, not really. I'm just done with this whole thing. Mini update. After filing for divorce, I received a notice from my lawyer about a temporary restraining order against my wife. Ella's been trying to contact me repeatedly, even showing up at my office and house. My lawyer advised me to block her and keep the distance until the divorce is finalized. Am I the idiot for dumping my boyfriend after he chose his flirty friend over our relationship? I have been with my boyfriend, who is 30 years old, for 3 years, and we share an apartment. He has a female friend named Nell, who is 34 years old, and they were friends for years before I came along. I had no issue with their closeness. I have male friends and knew I'd be a hypocrite to leap to judgments, but at this point, I feel I'm justified in thinking the way I do about her. The first time I met her, it was extremely obvious that Nell didn't like me. She came into the bar all excited to see my boyfriend before noticing me. Her entire demeanor changed. She shook my hand and dug her nails into my skin before ignoring me the rest of the night. She even seemed upset at one point that I took the seat beside my boyfriend and quietly left halfway through the evening without saying goodbye. So it's safe to say my first impression of her wasn't good, but I tried to reason with myself that not everyone gets along, and I don't need to be friends with my boyfriend's friends. However, as time passed, it became really clear Nell's attitude towards me wasn't improving. She had a way of openly mocking me in front of groups of people, making side comments or loudly joking about my voice or appearance. My boyfriend would stand there and say nothing. And after the fact, when I asked him about it, he'd say he hadn't noticed. She'd also make a show of hugging him hello and goodbye and not me. She would mix that kind of stuff in with smiles and basic politeness, so it was tough to articulate exactly what she'd done. I felt very much like I was back in high school. From that point on, I basically decided I didn't need to have someone like that in my life, so I just stopped going to things she was at. I haven't seen her in about a year. My boyfriend still sees her regularly, and they text often. I'm now at the stage where I fully believe they have either dated in the past or have something going on now. I've tried gently bringing this up, but he denies they ever dated and makes me feel like I'm being jealous and bitter by asking. I end up suppressing those feelings before something brings them up again. I've reached the end of my tether with it. The final straw for me came the other day when my boyfriend left his phone open and I saw a text exchange between the two. Nell had sent him a heart emoji, and my boyfriend had written something about how he was thinking of her. I know I should have said something then and there, but I felt numb and decided to go to bed. I'm trying to work out how to handle this. Is it possible nothing is going on here? It's something I've tried arguing in my head, but then something else pops up that makes me doubt it. Maybe friends do just send hearts, and I'm making this up because I don't care for Nell. I don't want that to be the case. I'm basically at a point where I feel he either has to tell me the truth and restrict contact with Nell, or else I don't feel like I can maintain the relationship. I feel constantly disrespected, and I want something to change, but don't know how to go about it. Any advice would be so welcome. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Look, you aren't going to like this, but the fact is that if he hasn't already stood up for you when she was openly mocking you, his partner, then he has made his priorities clear. She isn't the problem, your partner is. You have spent plenty enough time trying to make this work, but you have seen his true character. Is this really the type of partner you want to build your life with? He's not going to get better. He's not going to suddenly realize you are worth protecting and defending against rude people. Marriage and kids won't change that. He is 30 years old. He knows what he is doing. Comment 2. He is having his cake and eating it too. His acting all ignorant of her hostility is because he doesn't want to confront her and rock the boat with her. He is considering her feelings above yours. You are the third wheel. I suggest you find a relationship where you are appreciated and let him have his pick-me girl. Go find happiness with someone who puts you first. He isn't it. Now, for the update. Here's the update. A few weeks ago, I posted about my not-so-innocent boyfriend and his questionable friendship with this girl named Nell. Short recap. I was losing my mind over her being around. My boyfriend was telling me to chill, and I found some flirty texts that made me question everything. I needed him to either cut contact with her or I'd have to rethink our future. Now on to the update. A few weeks have passed since my last post. During that time, I decided it was time to get to the bottom of things. I mean, what more did I have to lose, right? So I decided to confront my boyfriend again about 2 weeks after the last mess. Remember the dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant? Yeah, we went back there, and I thought I'd pick up where we left off. I was kind of nervous about bringing it up, but I just didn't have any other options. My life felt like it was on pause, and I was ready to get things moving. So we sat down and I just said it. I told him that I was really uncomfortable with his continued communication with Nell. He went on and on about how their friendship was totally platonic, just like the last time, and brushed off my concerns. Same old story, different day. After dinner, my boyfriend got a phone call from Nell. Can you believe that? Right after I told him I wasn't cool with their friendship, he took the call outside the restaurant. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't help myself. I overheard snippets of their conversation, like them laughing and sharing inside jokes. I was so annoyed and frustrated that I didn't even know what to do with myself. The next evening, I went to my parents' anniversary party, where both my boyfriend and Nell were invited. My parents wanted us to go together, but I insisted that my boyfriend take an Uber. I did not want to be in the same car with him after all this. I felt trapped at the party for a few hours, just waiting for the inevitable. I was on edge, and I just knew that Nell would come up to me at some point. Sure enough, she did. She pretended to be friendly and all, but I wasn't buying it for a second. She made this comment about how much she missed my boyfriend during his last trip, and I just felt like I was going to explode. I forced a smile and walked away. I didn't want to cause a scene at my parents' anniversary party, but I couldn't just let it go either. So I found my boyfriend in a quieter moment and confronted him about Nell's comment. He brushed me off, saying Nell was just being dramatic. I was so tired of this. I didn't want to deal with it anymore. So I told my boyfriend I was taking a break from our relationship to think things over. I went to my sister's apartment for the weekend just to clear my head. While I was at my sister's, I got a text from my boyfriend asking if we could talk. We agreed to meet at a local coffee shop the next day. During the meeting, he apologized for not being more attentive. I asked him to prove his commitment by reducing his contact with Nell, and he reluctantly agreed. I wanted to believe him, but I just couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. A week later, while borrowing his laptop for a work project, I found out he was still texting Nell after he promised to stop. I was livid. I didn't confront him right away. I wanted to gather more information first. So I went through our shared calendar and noticed multiple upcoming events where Nell would be present. I decided to attend one of these events, a friend's birthday party, to observe their interactions. At the birthday party, my boyfriend was overly attentive to Nell. Like, it was so bad I wanted to throw up. I couldn't take it any longer, so I decided to leave the party early. After that, I called my best friend to talk about what I had witnessed. I was a mess. The following weekend, I invited my boyfriend over for a quiet dinner at home to talk. During dinner, I told him I was ending the relationship. He pleaded with me, claiming he wanted to change, but I stood firm. The trust was broken beyond repair. A few days later, I got a text from Nell asking if I was okay. I decided to block her number instead of responding. I was done with her nonsense. The next week, I focused on myself. I picked up hobbies I had neglected and started exploring new activities. I spent time with friends who supported me through all of this, and it felt great. Eventually, I met someone new at a painting class. There was an instant connection. It was like a breath of fresh air. I had forgotten what it felt like to be happy and excited about someone. I'm not rushing into anything, but I'm definitely open to seeing where this goes. To answer a few questions, my boyfriend and I have a shared laptop and calendar, which made it easier to find out about his continued contact with Nell. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.